Bob, we're here to see you.
Please let them in.
You can come in.
Good morning, Mr. Mbabu. Good morning, Mrs. Smith. You can take a seat. Welcome to Assassin's Attorneys. We thank you so much for choosing us as a legal advisor. According to the email we received, you were saying you were married before and you needed some legal advice from us on your marriage to be. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Oh, okay. So, my learned friend, colleague here, Graham,
Pleasure to meet you. Pleasure to meet you. Good morning.
he's our specialist in family law here at this law firm. So I've asked him to sit in so he can brief you and give you some advice on the marriage, and you can ask him some questions. I'll be taking notes. Over to you, Graham.
Okay, James and Lucy, pleasure to meet you. The first question that I need to ask is, do you guys have any assets or liabilities?
Yes, I do have. I have a house which is registered in my name. Also have 100,000 rand in my bank account.
Thank you, Lucy. James?
No, I have only liabilities amounting to 125,000 rands and no assets.
Okay, thank you, James. Okay, guys, with that in mind, I'm now going to describe the 3 marriage systems recognized in South Africa. I will give you a brief description of each, the consequences regarding your assets and liabilities, and we will then come to a conclusion as to which I believe is the best in your situation. The first system of marriage is marriage in community or property. This is the default position in South Africa, meaning that should we not agree to any system, this system would apply. Marriage in community or property would result in a complete joint estate of assets and liabilities. That is why I asked if you guys have any assets and liabilities between you two. The resulting effect of this is that should you get divorced in the future, or should one spouse pass away, an undivided half share would be split between each of the spouses. This includes both assets and liabilities. So James, your liabilities would become Lucy's, and Lucy's, your assets would become James's. I think, having regard to your situation, perhaps we should look at the other systems of marriage, as we would want to avoid combining the assets and liabilities into a joint estate to protect each of the individual spouses. Do you guys have any questions on that system?
Yes. So what happens if in future if I want to dispose of some properties registered in my name, or I happen to intend donating same to others? What's the effect later?
Okay, James, very good question. When you have a joint estate, you require the permission of the other spouse. You will not be able to dispose of any property within the joint estate without the other spouse's prior consent. Another issue is that of sequestration. Should one spouse be sequestrated, the other spouse would be sequestrated. This is not because of you two as individuals, but it is because of the joint estate. With that in mind, I think we should move on to the next system of marriage. That is the marriage out of community of property, excluding the accrual. This system of marriage is commonly known as a complete separation of assets. That means that neither spouse will share in the success of the other spouse during the marriage. Therefore, what you bring into the marriage is what you will walk away with. At the end of the marriage, whatever you guys have come to accumulate between the two of you will be split directly down the middle. So James, if you should elect to work, and Lucy, you would elect to stay at home and look after the children, unfortunately, if James does obtain a bigger estate, you may not have a claim to that estate. Subsequently, when he passes away, there will also be effects regarding the devolution of your estates. I feel that this type of marriage system is maybe too extreme for the two of you, as no newlywed wants to enter a marriage completely separate from their spouse. I mean, it's not just a sharing of one another, it's a sharing of everything you guys have throughout life. So I think the next system of marriage, in my personal opinion, is the best system of marriage. And I also
Before
think...
we proceed,
Yes, James.
so what happens if I am always left at home, taking care of the family, and my wife is working, and then we happen to divorce. What are the consequences thereafter?
Okay, James, the major issue with the complete separation of assets is you would not be entitled to a half share of the estate, meaning that if you have not worked and Lucy has built up her estate, you would have to, after the divorce, file a maintenance claim against Lucy, and various factors would then be considered as to how much maintenance you'll be awarded and for how long. So you would have no share in her estate, as they are completely separate.
So since I was married before, I've heard about the redistribution of assets. May you please explain to me how this thing works?
Sure. A redistribution of assets occurs between the spouses where, upon death, should a movable property or an asset that is unable of being divided be left, you would have to enter into a redistribution agreement to have that property left to your particular children and the surviving spouse. However, with our focus on marriage, I don't think we should be focusing on the death and the end of the marriage. I think we should move on to what I think would serve you guys well.
Oh, okay.
And that system of marriage is the marriage out of community of property, including the accrual. Now, the accrual has to be specifically included within your marriage agreement. However, if it is not included, it will apply automatically should you guys get married out of community of property. As stated before, this is to prevent a complete separation of assets, as it is generally inferred that you would want to share in one another's estates to the extent of the accrual. I believe that this system of marriage is superior to the former systems of marriage because it takes the pros of the previous two and it kind of throws the cons out. What I mean by that is that the accrual provides where the spouse who enters the marriage with the least amount of assets, James, that would be you in this instance, you would be able to obtain a certain percentage of the accrual that would between the assets that would accrue throughout the subsistence of the marriage upon the death of Lucy or upon a future divorce. With that in mind, it also allows each spouse to protect the other. Your assets and your liabilities will be kept separate at the entrance of marriage, and only the amounts that are accrued throughout marriage would be divided between you two. So, sequestration, James, should you ever be sequestrated, or Lucy, should you ever be sequestrated, the other spouse would be protected. You may also devolve of your assets that you entered into the marriage with. However, the accrued estate, you would have to have an agreement between the two spouses. I think that this system of marriage should be selected between you two, as it will protect you, Lucy, from any creditor's claims if James would be unable to pay off his liabilities. And James, it will also allow, should you want to stay at home and need to look after the children, it will also allow for you to have a claim against the accrued estate should the marriage dissolve either through divorce or death.
So, under this matrimonial regime, who is liable for household necessaries?
That would depend upon which spouse would be working. The spouse who earns the most would obviously, and who has the higher asset share, and that would be determined at the entrance of the marriage, would be responsible for household necessaries and provisions to that effect.
Okay.
With that being said, would you guys be interested in that marriage system? Would you want to go forward with an agreement?
I think the last one is the best.
Okay, thank you, James. I agree.
Of property with a
Okay, Daphne, what do you think?
I think that you have made the right choice. You guys, given your history and the circumstances, that is a very best and very good marriage option. We wish you all the best.
Thank you so much.
I'll begin drafting your
I
agreement.
appreciate your advice.
Thank you.
I'll email you everything that we have discussed here, and if you've got any queries and questions, please inform me. Then we'll get to your mandate. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
We'll see you soon.
James?
Thank you.
Thank you.